Hello again. I dare say that most viewers will be familiar with the expression incel, which is an abbreviation for involuntarily celibate. This is one of those unfortunate trends which have either been entirely created by the internet or at the very least greatly exacerbated by it. There have always been men who for one reason or another are unable to find a woman who will have sex with them or form a romantic attachment. Why, there have been periods in my own life when I was in the same regrettable position, but fortunately they did not last for long. Incels are those who are unable to find romantic or sexual partners and as a result become embittered. Many are lifelong virgins. So far there's nothing strange about any of this. There have always been lonely men who are unsuccessful with women, and this is hardly a new thing. However, these days such people can get together on the internet and sympathise with each other. Harmless enough, you might think, except that some of them begin to hate women in general and blame them for not wanting to have sex with incels. These people encourage each other. To use a colloquialism, they wind each other up about the subject. Mostly this is confined to unpleasant language. On such groups, women are routinely called sluts and other even less agreeable names. Once in a while all this spills out of a lonely man's bedroom and onto the streets, and the result can be a shooting spree. This is of course extremely rare, but a few men who have identified as incels have gone mad and shot people. Because of this, suggestions have been made, and in the wake of the shootings in Plymouth are now being made vociferously in Britain, that crimes of this kind should be classified as terrorism. This is A, completely bonkers, and B, part of a sinister overall plan, which I'll come to shortly. What is terrorism? Well, let's look at one or two definitions of what terrorism is. Let's have a look first at the dictionary definition. That would be a good place to begin. Terrorism, the unofficial or unauthorised use of violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. Well, that sounds quite clear. What about the legal definition in Britain? Here's what the website for the Crown Prosecution Service says. I give a link to this above. Terrorism is the use or threat of action, both in and outside of the UK, designed to influence any international government organisation or to intimidate the public. It must also be for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. Murderous rampages by so-called incels do not fall under any of these definitions. Some incels may well be aggressive and unpleasant individuals who attack others, although this is extremely rare, but they're not advancing any political, religious, racial or ideological cause. They've just snapped through personal unhappiness. Why then are we hearing that incels should be classed as terrorists and that the incel movement should be regarded as a terrorist ideology? The reason for this is really very simple. I'm sure that most readers will have noticed that every terrorist attack in Europe and the United States since the year 2000 has been carried out by Muslims. This is disturbing for liberals and anybody else with a vaguely left-wing mindset. After all, Muslims usually have brown skins, and the idea that only ethnic minorities are planting bombs and otherwise massacring people is abhorrent. Since white people are the dominant ethnic group in the West, surely they must also be responsible for terrorism. In November, the head of terrorism at London's Metropolitan Police, an Asian guy called Neil Basu, asserted that far-right ideologies were now the main threat faced by Britain as relating to terrorism, saying, "We are seeing more young people being drawn towards terrorist activity." What sort of young people? 10 out of the 12 under 18s who were arrested for terrorism last year were linked to extreme right-wing ideology. The suggestion is being made that the majority of terrorism in Britain is being carried out by people subscribing to extreme right-wing ideology. These people are invariably white. This will leave most of us scratching our heads in bewilderment. How many right-wing terrorists in Britain have planted bombs in the last 20 years? How many have driven up on the pavement and mown down pedestrians? How many have gone mad with knives, hacking passers-by to death? The answer to these questions is, of course, none at all, which is where incels fit into the picture. By pretending that the actions of a disturbed individual like the man in Plymouth are part of a terrorist movement, we can claim that white people in Britain are carrying out murderous attacks. It's not just Asians who are terrorists, you know. For this reason, strenuous efforts are being made to recruit the Plymouth shooter posthumously to the incel movement. The fact that never in the course of his life did he describe himself as an incel must be ignored. That he attended a special school and had serious mental health problems must also be brushed to one side. If we can classify him as an incel terrorist, then it will be possible to claim that white terrorism is more of a danger in Britain than Islamism. This is the unspoken agenda behind the talk of incels being classified as terrorists.